Hello, welcome to this lesson on what is fake news, a red hot topic these days in the news. And it's something I couldn't help but share tons of information I researched on the topic. So it's a monster unit. There's information overload. Stop the video and come back to it later. So let me jump to my agenda, which I have here. And so we will begin by taking a little survey to find out the people you trust the most, that you believe the most. And then we'll take a 1-minute tour of the history of fake news, which I think is interesting. Didn't start yesterday. And after, we'll look at the 3 main categories of fake news: disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. Important distinctions. And then we'll dig deeper and examine the 7 types of fake news, ranging from satire or parody and fabricated content to manipulated content. And we'll show an example of fabricated content using a fake news story about Donald Trump. And then we'll share some really important tips on spotting fake news. And then we will look at the 4 activities accompanying the lesson, and then finally wrap it up restating what we covered in the lesson. So let's go to our little survey here. Whom do you trust the most? So let's take a look at these 6 professions. There's a lawyer, there's a school teacher, there's a car salesperson, there's a nurse, and a government MP, a member of parliament. And so take a minute to rank the professionals, these different careers, from most trusted, number 1, to least trusted, number 6. So stop the recording while you do this and come back to it in a minute or so. So how do your answers compare with those in a survey that was done in Australia in 2017? So nurse came out first. School teacher was next. Yay! Lawyer was 3rd. Newspaper journalist was only 4th. Government MP, member of parliament, was 5th, and car salesperson was last. So, are you surprised? Here's the full survey in Australia in 2017. And so, are you surprised with the results of the survey? How do they compare with your answers? So I did this little exercise to get you thinking about who or what, such as the news, is trustworthy or worth believing. So let's now jump to fake news. So if I go here, so what we'll do first, broadly speaking, there are 2 kinds of fake news. First, it can mean an invented or untrue fact that may seem real. And this kind of fake news can take the form of hoax news or alternative facts. Hoax news or alternative facts. And second, it can be a claim, a statement that a real news story or actual fact is false in order to discredit or disprove it. And this type of fake news has been popularized by Donald Trump. So let's take a quick tour of the history of fake here on this page, that the fake news was already used in 1894. So let's go back to the term, as you see in this slide here, this term humbug refers to dishonest news, and cheap sensation refers to sensationalism, a type of yellow journalism. Afterwards, we'll have a look at as I mentioned, we'll have a look at disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. So it's important to be aware of these distinctions. So let's move forward to the 1-minute history of fake news. It didn't start yesterday. In antiquity, the Egyptians did it in the 13th century. In medieval times, the Jews were killed because of fake news, saying that they killed an infant. In the 18th century, the famous great American Benjamin Franklin, a founding father, was capable of writing fake news about the murderous North American Indians to manipulate public opinion. And then in the 19th century, of course, we have the rise of yellow journalism. It reached its peak, sensationalist stories with little evidence, and were used to influence public opinion. And then the 20th century was a madhouse of fake news. During the Second World War, the German propaganda minister Goebbels spread fake news about the Holocaust, and even the British did fake news about to help or to demoralize German soldiers. So let's have a quick overview of fake news. We said here, fake news, there are three kinds of fake news. This is an important distinction. Fake news, get back to this distinction about fake news, to understand its different forms, because it's not a monolithic term. So disinformation is false information that is used explicitly to harm someone, group or organization, and even a country. So misinformation is inaccurate information, but it is not used intentionally to be harmful. And this can take the form of a hoax or even a April Fool's Day joke. Malinformation is similar to disinformation with an intent to harm. However, here there's an element of truth in the information on which the false story is built. So if we jump now to, if I go to our next major point here, which is the 7 types of fake news. So we really don't have time to elaborate on all of these points. You can read this here. So you see number 1 has to do with a satire or parody, which has to do with humor and exaggeration. Number 2 is misleading content to give the wrong impression. And then there is imposter content, uses a real informational website to deceive. They mimic a real site, and I've had the Royal Bank sent to me as a mimic site to try to steal your money. Then there's fabricated content, is 100% false and designed to be deceitful. And in the next slide, we have an example regarding the Pope and Donald Trump. And number 5, there's false connection, no connection between the headline, the graphics, and the information in the story. That's very common. And then number 6, there's blatantly false comment is as an article appears alongside general information. And then there's manipulated content, which is altered information or graphics that are really meant to trick you. And so let's jump to our next point here, which is fabricated content, an example. So as I said, this piece of fake news came out. Pope Francis shocks the world and endorses Trump for president. This went viral, actually, in 2016. So take a few minutes to read on the left how it was created, how it was produced, how it was distributed, and finally, how it was reproduced. And interestingly, this piece of fake news eventually was picked up by 960,000, almost 1 million Facebook engagements, according to the source BuzzFeed. Whoa, that is amazing, amazing. So this is a great piece of information here. How to spot fake news. So in the chart, which you have in the script, we have the ever useful WH words: the who, the what, the where, and the when, where, and why. So you want to use the questions in the column 2 in the graphic in the script, and the main points in column 3 to help you to spot fake news. So for example, who wrote it is so important. What viewpoint does the article express? When was the article published? And where was the article published? And then finally, why was the article written? And why are you reading it? So those are really important questions to ask yourself. Let's jump now to the 4 activities that accompany this unit. So if I can go to my activities here and move this over just a bit. So here, so in activity 1, you get to review the main points, the true or false. Choose whether the following statements are true or false. There's a short answer here, which is, we've done that before, complete the statement. And now in activity 2, there's social media analysis, which I think is interesting, and you're experts at this. Social media is part of our everyday life, and it has both its advantages and disadvantages. So in the table below, identify the positive and negative aspects of social media in general. Here we have a vocabulary activity where go to this really interesting how to choose the news video. It's less than 5 minutes, and you want to build your vocabulary, choose 5 words used in the video and define them. And then you also want to create 5 true or false statements from the video that we'll later share in a class quiz. And then finally, you want to do some research here. Go back to the graphic showing the 7 categories of information disorder, or those 7 types of fake news, and do research and find an example of each category and write 3 or 4 lines describing each item you find and how it fits the category. So that's a bit of a challenge, I hope. So we go back here now to our conclusion. So the wrap up. So you took a survey about the people you trust the most. Then we did a 1-minute tour of the history of fake news. It's kind of interesting. Afterwards, we looked at the 3 distinctions, main categories of fake news. There's disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. Do you remember the distinctions there? The subtle distinctions. And then in addition, we examined the 7 types of fake news or information disorder. And we saw an example of fabricated content using a fake news story about President Trump and, well, at the time he wasn't president, but the Pope. And then later we looked at the pros and cons of social media, one of the main generators of fake news. And then finally we shared some useful tips on spotting fake news, a very useful set of questions. So I hope you enjoyed this tour of fake news. It's an exciting topic. I'm a bit of a junkie on this topic. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next lecture. Bye now.